Oh boy, I'm glad we did that in the '80s when I was a teenager. Else,
Yeah,
gosh
I would have
knows
been
where-
in
yeah.
so much trouble. I'm glad that wasn't around.
Well, wait, maybe you'd have stayed out of trouble, Jill.
Well, maybe I would have.
That's a good point.
Maybe I would have.
Well, it definitely, technology has the potential to do great good, and that's the thing we have to keep in mind, but we do live with a lot of risks.
Life's Third Act is a podcast dedicated to helping you get the most out of your retirement. Sponsored by Tucker Allen, Attorney-CPA Joe Cordell features guests each week to discuss prominent topics for those over 55. Here's Attorney-CPA Joe Cordell.
Welcome to another episode of Life's Third Act. Well, it's a new year, and what better topic to start off the new year with than to tell you should be worried about frauds and scams and whatnot. So we're not putting a damper at all on the new year, but we do think, though, that it's appropriate that we be mindful of that, especially as you age, because you become more targeted. And we have a guest on that I know you like because you have told us you like this person. This person's been on probably 5 times in 5 years.
I would say so.
So this is the annual visit from our authority on consumer scams. Don O'Brien, are you there?
I'm there. You said you're saving your best for first, right? Instead of saving your best for last,
yeah.
You're getting your best for first here in 2023.
It's downhill from here. but we figure that we want you to protect your wealth during this forthcoming year. There may be a recession. I think there's, in my humble opinion, I think there's a substantial risk of recession, and I get that from experts who are expressing opinions on this. And I think during periods of recession, I think oddly enough, many people come out of the woodwork and think of more devious ways, I guess, to scam.
The bad actors,
scam people. And do you think, Dawn, that maybe that tends to happen because people let their guard down, or they become more wishful in terms of increasing their income or bringing in additional money, so they're more vulnerable to pitches, do you think?
Strong roots are essential for a healthy tree, especially your family tree. That's why you work hard to take care of your family every day. At Tucker Allen, we know that taking care of your family means planning for the future. Our team provides personalized estate planning to help you protect your family, your legacy, and your future. From wills and trusts to long-term care and estate planning, count on Tucker Allen. Personalized estate planning made simple.
So I think, Joe, you're right on hit the nail right on the head. And I appreciate you guys having me back on. And, when times are tough and there's an easy out maybe for those tough times, you see something on a social media website. Maybe somebody texts you and says, that you can be part of this great grant program. And all you have to do is reach us now. And you reach out to that person and you can get, let's say, especially we've seen older Americans really be targeted in those grant scams where you may be able to get a $150,000 grant, but all you have to pay is 1% of that, or $1,500. And you think, well, that's great. I could spend that $1,500. I don't want all that money for myself, but maybe I can do things for my family. I can give my family some money. I can help my church. I can help my community. And instead of helping your church and your community, you're going to lose that $1,500, and that's just the first bite of the apple they're going to take from you. So I think you're right on the nose, Joe. I think that when times do get tougher, people do probably fall for these things more often.
And Don, I want to ask you. You've been an investigator with the Better Business Bureau for a long time, and people often assume when a senior is scammed that senior may have some cognitive impairment, but that's not always the case. I mean, these are often people, even though they're seniors, they're still very sharp, they're well educated, and they're lured in by these bad actors. I mean, do you find that to be true?
100%, Joe, you're right on. I mean, it's not as if now, obviously, there are people who are taken advantage of when they may not be as sharp as they were when they were younger. But these scams that happen to older Americans, they can just, they can happen to CEOs of companies. They can happen just as likely are to somebody who, works the regular 9 to 5 blue collar job, and they just are used to working that kind of job if they're retired now. So, these scams hit against really all age spectrums now, but especially for seniors. They are the thing about seniors is seniors are smarter than the young folks. But and again, we've talked about this before, when they do fall into one of these traps, they're going to lose a lot more money than their grandchildren would, just for the simple fact that they have a life's worth of accumulated funds.
But they often tend to be, I think we've talked before, more trusting.
Mm-hmm. Yep, without a doubt.
Yeah,
handshake agreement, Joe. Remember the handshake agreements you used to have?
Yeah, I'm afraid that was in the last century.
Yeah, right. We left that in the 1900s.
Yeah,
right. That does not apply anymore.
So let's talk about, though, what are you guys seeing at the Better Business Bureau in terms of scams or frauds?
The top ones of 2022 involving seniors, what would you say?
Well, it's this one. The top of 2022 not only involves seniors. Online purchase scams have been huge. Whether you're 18 or 88, these folks have been able to get to you in different ways. For seniors, a lot of times they're going to prey on you through your social media usage, more than likely Facebook. They might also try to get you through your phone. This right here is their number one conduit. You can't see my phone because it disappeared in my background. But, text messages are huge. They like to imitate popular businesses like an Amazon, maybe even a Netflix. We've even had them now trying to say that your Venmo has been compromised. Now, the likelihood of a 65 or 75-year-old person getting the Venmo one is probably pretty small. They're probably trying to get the younger people there. But they will try to say that your bank is trying to reach you with a text message and saying your funds have been, there's something wrong with your bank account. And boy, that's really going to get you to go. And again, they wanted you to act in the heat of the moment, act before you think, where what we want you to do is think before you act.
I had something like that happen to me with someone posing as an Amazon rep. In fact, it was one day about a year ago, I was just leaving an LTA recording, and I got a call from someone claiming to be an Amazon rep and telling me that someone was trying to purchase, like $1,500 worth of merchandise. And I'm thinking it's real. And I said, well, how would they have gotten my account? Well, do you use your phone? And I said, yes, to make Amazon purchases. And then they wanted my my IP address or something on my phone. And right there I knew, I'm like, okay, no, you're not from Amazon. Bye-bye. But
yes, exactly right.
It was very convincing. I was believing it at first.
And they make, they make a sense of urgency. You're in that moment. You thought, oh my goodness. Now, Jill, do you use Amazon?
You use Amazon.
I use Amazon, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so so that they were able to, that was believable for you. We get so many calls at our BBB offices here in St. Louis from people who say, well, I don't even have an Amazon account. Why are they emailing me, or why are they sending me these text messages? And I have to explain to a lot of times these are older adults. It's like, well, they're basically wanting you to click on a link of some sort to get some type of information from you. So, you just have to kind of think in that heat of that moment rather than acting immediately. So, one thing that I always tell people, if you're dealing with these big corporations, especially like Amazon called Jill, right? I would like to see Jill try to call Amazon and try to get anybody on the phone.
Right.
Because if you can get a live person at Amazon or Netflix or any of these other companies they may use as part of their ruses, good on you, because you might have a better chance of getting a hold of somebody at the White House than you can from some of these.
I actually did. I was very patient and persistent. I made sure I got a hold. I mean, it took a while, but I did, because I was kind of concerned about that. And you know what happened right after that? My work email account got hacked. And I don't know if it was just a coincidence or what, but yes, somebody was spoofing my email address emailing everyone on my contact list, and I couldn't use my email. I couldn't send out. It was crazy, and it was a big ordeal for IT to resolve it.
So the one tip I want to give people out there that get a situation like you were in, Jill, you did the right thing. You didn't just, a lot of times they may send an email saying, oh, your Amazon account's been compromised, call us at, and they'll give you a number. Don't ever just call that number, because all you're doing is calling the scammers at that point. At that point, what you want to do is actually seek out an actual number for Amazon, or they might use your bank. Let's say you're a Bank of America customer, and they may say, oh, call us a Bank of America at this number, which more than likely is going to be a scam number. That's just going to take you to them, not to your actual bank. So, it's really good that you investigated a little bit before you decided to say, oh, yeah, here's my IP address, have at it.
And Don, I don't know if we've talked about, I don't think we have a lot about the Social Security scams, where someone will call posting from the Social Security Administration. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, how does that scam usually work? I mean, because I can imagine a lot of seniors, that would make them nervous if someone's calling and saying, your money, has been compromised or something, or your information.
Or the IRS.
IRS and Social Security. There's a Social Security scam, Jill, is where they will say they will either they'll either text you, or they might actually call you and say, oh, Jill, or Joe, your Social Security number has been suspended because we found out that it's been used in some type of nefarious act, and they'll say Texas, somewhere way away from where you're at. It's been involved in a crime, so you have to give us, you have to do this before your Social Security number is going to be active again. That's all baloney. I mean, there's no such thing as somebody's Social Security number being suspended. Secondly, if somebody calls you and says there's some Social Security, that is a 100% scam. Social Security is never going to call you. If Social Security has a reason to get in contact with you, they're going to do it through the postal mail. Like recently, I have a child who's going to college for the first time in the next fall. I had to fill out a FAFSA form, and that had some Social Security information in it. My Social Security number was used. They sent me something in the mail saying, hey, your number was used in this FAFSA, and that's perfect because that's what I did. But if they call you, 100% scam.
Right. And you know what? That is so true, because one time, years ago, my aunt, when she was like 101, she was sent a letter, and they said she lived to be 105. But they sent a letter, and they said, we wanted to come out and just see your driver's license. Well, basically, they wanted to see that she was really still alive. And I made the phone call for her, and she was all upset because she was thinking they were going to take her Social Security away. And I said, no, they're just wanting to make sure you're really alive and someone's not collecting fraudulently on your Social Security. And that's all it was. And someone came out and looked at her ID and saw she was very much alive.
So that was legitimate then.
They sent a person out, yes.
I've never heard of that before, but that doesn't surprise me. But then again, what they did is they worked through the proper channels, though. They sent her something in the mail. You called them. You set something up with that actual Social Security agent. That's interesting.
Right, because we've seen where people have pulled those. I mean, there was a case recently in the news where somebody's, I believe it was their mother who had died back in the 90s. And this guy was collecting her Social Security check for all these years, and he just recently went to prison. It was in North County, I believe.
Yep, that can happen. Yeah, and of all the entities you want to get in trouble with, the federal government is the last entity you want to get in the federal government. Joe can tell you that because of, I'm sure not because Joe's been in trouble with the federal government by any means, but just because he's a lawyer.
Well, yeah, and their accommodations in federal prisons are not as attractive as accommodations in some state facilities. No,
not at all.
Mississippi excluded. So let's talk about, though, a little bit more about these iPhones. There are people who tell me that, for example, at Cordell & Cordell and other IT departments that we use, that people within an organization should not open emails from outside sources without having confidence that it's originating from someone that they're comfortable with. And apparently just the act of opening the email, and it may be that you have to open a document, but I think for some of these, it's opening the email is enough to let loose inside your system something that, as you described, Jill,
Yes.
It sounds like something got into your contacts. So they had all your contacts, all the information about them, including if you put in information about birth dates of your friends because you like to be cute. I do. I have birth dates of family and a number of people because I like to know. Then they have that information, which they use to great advantage. But they essentially Shanghai your entire database.
It was so embarrassing because they were sending, in the subject line, it said invoice. So they were sending these emails to people, coworkers, to guests we've had on the show, actually. And I had to get on the phone and contact these people and said, don't open this. This is not me. And they were sending them to people in other countries like France, Belgium. I don't know anybody there.
Yeah. So, you're right. I mean, usually you have to hit some kind of link in order for those things to happen. So I'm not an IT expert at all. I just know that if Joe, going back to your original point about the iPhone, if you have an older adult in your life, my father's going to be 80 this year, and 23. And he's, he lives alone. And I'm on him all the time about, he's not a big iPhone person, which is good, or he doesn't have a smartphone. He's got a dumb phone. So I don't really have to worry about him being much preyed on. I say that with
like a flip phone. You
correct?
Mean?
An old flip phone. So the chance that they can still send text messages or stuff, but if he knows not to hit in on any links. But if they send him something, it's not going to go anywhere anyway because his phone's not going to do that. But if you do have someone in your life who has one of these iPhones, and the technology. I'm in my early 50s, and sometimes the technology is starting to get a little bit overwhelming for me. I can only imagine someone who's maybe in their 70s or 80s who has this technology right at their fingertips and really doesn't know how to use it. So if you have a loved one like that, you really have to coach him or her about how to use these products and how to stay safe. Teach them how to block calls because, unfortunately, although it's getting a lot better, believe it or not, I know a lot of people are not going to believe in us when I say this, but the number of robocalls we're getting is actually going down or went down in 2022. So there's a lot of good work being done by the Federal Communications Committee, the SEC, about in that area. Now, we still get them, but they're not as many as there used to be. So teach them how to block numbers. I mean, you really have to, I don't want to say coddle, but you really want to help out your older loved ones because, they've got this technology in the pocket and they can be victimized if they don't know how to use it.
So let's though come back. I just want to be sure that the viewer picks up some walk away points, and I think that you're probably right. I think we can be confident that it's much more risky to hit a link or, as I was referring to, open a document.
Yep.
So all people who use iPhones or use any sort of smartphone, make a note that whenever you get an email from a source you don't know, don't open a document and don't click a link. And if you need to confirm its source, where it came from, then you can do that directly, as you suggested, Don, just by contacting the company or whatever it may be. But that would rule out a lot of the big risk.
Sure.
It sounds like that's what happened to you even on that occasion.
Yeah, I'm sure. So
if you have a hard and fast rule that I'm not going to click on a link and I'm just going to delete things when they come that way to me, then you're going to be golden. I mean, because if you never click on them, you can't be compromised by them.
Don, I was reading on the BBB's website about what the National Council on Aging is reporting about 5 million older Americans, are abused yearly, and the annual loss of these victims, by financial abuse, comes to about $36 billion a year, which is huge. But what is the emotional impact? I can only imagine, someone has worked their whole life and to have their savings, taken away by one of these bad actors. I mean, is there a case that comes to mind, without mentioning any names, but where you've seen people just so distraught and devastated?
Well, we're 5-6 weeks away from Valentine's Day. That's right around the corner. Romance scams are huge, especially for older Americans, and that's where we've maybe we're not as isolated as we were back in 2020, but even seniors, that's a population that can be my father, who again, I'm just going to use him as an example. He's 80. He lives by himself. He gets out and about and he goes places, but he spends a lot of time alone. And, seniors tend to be, if they're not married still, maybe they're widowed like my father and they spend a lot of time alone. Maybe they go online, they find somebody who wants to be their friend or maybe a romantic interest. And, they can be taken. We had a case here in St. Louis. I'm going to want to say it was like 2018. We heard somebody lose about $2 million in one of these romance scams. And again, they didn't get $2 million taken from them at once. The people, they gain their trust. They start to say, hey, I need money for this and for that. And, this person trusted the scammer. And
they met this person online.
Met him online, yes, 100%. And that's, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, though, Don, that the thing that you're referring to is a real common phenomenon, especially as to dating sites. And incidentally, I mean, I think the future is, in terms of people meeting their future husbands or wives, I'm convinced, having talked to lots of 17 to 35-year-olds and met their new spouses
online. I've seen,
yeah. And I mean, if you meet somebody today that has married in the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 to 10 years, I could be wrong. I'm just completely off the top of my head, so I haven't read the statistic. I'll tell you that personally, I think as many as a third met that way. And I would definitely say the third would apply for people I know who've married who are over 60 and even over 70. They do meet online. So I think it's a marvelous development. It's technology at work, making your life more efficient. I mean, you can meet more people. And, there's a chance of finding a spouse that may be a better fit for you. I understand the wonderful aspects of these websites.
I guess it's better than meeting in a bar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, although I would argue not better than a church. Some would say,
right, not better than a church. I agree.
I might have some clients who say, well, I met my wife in a church and it didn't go well. But
yeah.
But the point is, I think that there's great potential for good meeting people this way. But as you were suggesting, and you might talk a little bit more about, is these men or these women, as the case may be really anxious, and I would think that would be fertile prey. I mean, if we were devious and we were wanting to figure out, gee, how can we get some money? Wouldn't we think that people who are older and who are wanting to meet somebody,
right, they're vulnerable?
Wouldn't we see that as a fertile opportunity to go to those websites and perhaps assume some other identity? Is there a way to protect loved ones, or for our client or our viewers to protect themselves?
Yeah, you really have to. You really have to be aware of what your older loved ones are doing, or if you're the one that, let's say, you're the one that maybe is in an online relationship. The number one thing you can do to protect yourself a little bit, to make sure that the person on the other end of that computer screen is real, is we're having a Zoom conversation right now. The technology is there for people, even though they can't meet in person. I could talk, Joe. You and Joe could do this every day if we wanted, and you would know me, and I would know you. It's when those people just want to hide behind that curtain of the keyboard and don't want to meet. And sometimes older adults aren't technologically savvy enough to have something like we're doing, like a Zoom meeting. So you just, again, if you're a caretaker of an older adult, you need to really know what he or she is doing online, and that's not to try to lord over them by any means, but you want to keep them safe, because there are a lot of bad actors out there. And those bad actors, they have an entire script from step 1 to, hi, how are you doing, to step 101 or whatever it might be, to here, this is how I'm going to get money out of you during that entire relationship.
Can someone take a person's name and maybe even ask them for the Social Security number, but go and check out someone that they have met online through like Better Business Bureau or another source?
Well, there's certain things you can do. I had an incident up in Quincy, Illinois, where I had a guy who was involved in the romance scam, and he wanted to ask me about this woman. So he said, luckily he did not lose any money, but that's where it was coming to. He thought that she was about ready to ask him for money. And I said, well, you know what? I said, have you ever talked to this person? No, we've only messaged. And, what the scammers had done is they'd made a fake Facebook profile for this woman. This woman, by the way, used to be an investigator for the FBI. I actually reached out to her. I was able to find her phone number through there's something called truepeoplesearch.com.
Yeah.
Where I looked up her name. Now, True People Search is one of these websites that just takes readily available public information and puts it all online. Those are the ones that'll say, "Oh, if you want to know if Don O'Brien's been arrested, click here," and then you have to pay money, and that in itself is a little bit. But there are yes. If you wanted, if I could probably go find Joe Cordell on True People Search, unless your people have taken you off of that website, and I've taken myself and all my family off of it. But again, there's all kinds of websites like that to take publicly available information and put it online.
Well, and you can go to Missouri CaseNet and check
true.
someone out, see if there's any criminal records or anything like that.
CaseNet is really good. Now, and on the Illinois side of the river, it's not as good because you have to go county by county, so you really have to know where that person lives. So it's not as Missouri does it right with their court documents and their criminal documents as well with that CaseNet. So yeah, there are certain things. If you see somebody online, there's a Google image search. You can do a reverse image search. Let's say that you find this. A Facebook photo of whoever your loved one's dealing with. You can take that photo, drag it on your desktop, and then drag it into Google Images and see if this photo is used anywhere else. A lot of times, you'll find that photo is used in other ruses. Same thing you can do if you're in a puppy scam or anything else. You can take any photo you find online, do that reverse image search, and see if that photo is anywhere. We just had a virtual vehicle scam, a virtual vehicle vendor scam, where I took the photo of this 1977 Ford Bronco that was for sale, put it online, and it popped up on all kinds of different websites. And I was able to tell the person, no, this is not a legitimate offer. So there are certainly tools in our toolbox that we can use to kind of help us out.
That's an
good
interesting
to know.
point.
Yeah.
Reverse image searches. And if you're not computer savvy, they're really easy to do. Again, Google Images is a way to go, or there's a website called tineye.com that I also use. And again, if you can drag and drop, or if you have somebody in your loved in your circle that can drag and drop for you, you can certainly do these things easily yourself.
And now the new iPhones, the latest iOS system allows you to lift a particular image from a photo. You pause on it, you press your finger, for example, and it indicates that it's choosing this person or this shape, and you lift it, copy it, and then you can paste it anywhere you want, just that individual. You imagine the potential for mischief placing that person in another background.
Yeah.
Right? But it's incredible. You have an iPhone, don't you?
I do have but it's an older one.
Oh, you may not be able to update it for that much.
Right. No, I have to get I'm ready for a new phone.
Well, I thought this might have been your strategy to have a dumb phone, but no. No.
I used to like my dumb phone. I'll tell you why. That dumb phone took better pictures than any iPhone I had. Believe it or not. I don't know why.
Well, I have a family member who actually is not an older person, but, well, I guess depending on your perspective, upper 50s. And to me, that's young. But his position is that he wants a flip phone and nothing else because he doesn't like the fact that he can be followed, he can be located. He just believes that it's so intrusive,
right?
Whether it's Google doing it, whether it's Facebook doing it, or Apple doing it.
Yeah.
He's convinced that when you have a phone, you're walking around with a regular smartphone today, that you're just trusting that any of these third-party actors are not choosing to know where you go, what you buy, when you do it, where you go for your recreational time. It's just, they definitely have the ability. The question is, do they do it? And he's convinced they do. He's a Harvard grad, incidentally, if that means anything, but But he, you ask him to see his phone. I noticed that the other evening he has this this little flip phone. I didn't even know they still make these things.
They do, obviously, yeah. I was just in a phone store, and I was surprised to see them.
Mm-hmm. They also call them burner phones, Joe. They they use them for a while and they just throw them away when they're done. The people that want to use them for nefarious acts, but again, there's so much maybe this is a different tangent, but there's so much distrust now of big tech that and maybe we've seen too many editions of Nightline or 48 Hours where they were able to track him because his phone pinged off different cell phone towers on his way to go to somewhere. So the technology is amazing, and if you wanted to. We don't do this with our children, but a lot of people have these apps that they can tell where their kids are all the time.
I have that with my teenagers.
Yeah, and they work really good, don't they, Jill?
They really do. They really do. And so far, since my daughter got her new phone, every time she tells me she goes someplace, she really is at that place.
Oh boy, I'm glad we didn't have that in the 80s when I was a teenager. Else, gosh
I would have been in so much trouble. I'm glad that wasn't around.
Well, wait, maybe you'd have stayed out of trouble, Jill.
Well, maybe I would have.
That's a good point.
Maybe I would have.
Well, it's it definitely technology has the potential to do great good, and that's the thing we have to keep in mind. But we do live with a lot of risks. And Wall Street Journal has an article that was in the Wall Street Journal just very recently, within days, that's talking about parents who continue to monitor their adult children using devices that are for small children.
Wow.
And I didn't read the article. I just saw the headline. But apparently that's a thing.
Talk about being a helicopter mom.
Well,
right. And there's some good use for that for maybe the segment of the population that we're talking about here. If you have an older adult, like I said, I'm just using my father as an example. I kind of know his habits and where he goes all the time. But if you want to keep tabs on your parent, your older parent or your older loved one, those things could certainly help you out.
It could, and you may very well get their consent to do that. And so I would say to our viewers that it might be in your interest, to have somebody that could locate you. Yep. If something happened to you, and you can imagine the scenarios, but there's lots of things that where you would want somebody to be able to locate you, and that's a tool that's available.
Well, yeah, and we see all the time on the news those silver alerts that are issued for a missing older adult, and if they have their phone on them, it's easy for the family and the police to find them.
But in order to do that, other than the means that we were talking about a while ago, which are not voluntary, but they also are more trouble if you're going to exercise it or use it, and it's going to be a lot of delay. There are apps that you can have that you just give your phone permission, and your son, your daughter, some other family member, you can let them be able to know where you are. You may think that's a great idea because you expect to be, in 3 or 4 places most of the time. And if you're not, it may be because, something's wrong. Yep. So that is I wish I could tell them apps to get for that purpose, but they're out there. Maybe we can post that. Justin, can you post some apps that will provide that sort of oversight? Yeah.
Justin can do it. He's all over it.
Justin is, have you had your 21st birthday yet, Justin?
40.
What? Was that a 40?
No way.
Now, if our audience could see him, I swear he looks like he's about 22.
Right. He looks much younger than what he is.
Yeah. So I think you have to look like you're 22 to do the job. You don't have to be 22. You just have to look like it.
Right.
Anyway, so what other topics do we need to call attention to here at the beginning of the year?
I was thinking about how often we hear about caregivers, like say a home health care worker, taking advantage of an older adult, taking their checks and writing themselves checks. I mean, we hear about that all the time.
Yeah, and that's something that we, that's probably more of a law enforcement action than it would be a Better Business Bureau action. But from an overall standpoint, that goes back to when you put your loved one in some type of caregiving situation, you want to know about that company that's going to send people into your house, or if you're going to send them to a home, if you will, a long-term care facility, you want to check out that facility and how they vet their people. What kind of background checks do they do for that person who's either going to give in-home health care or that's going to take care of your loved one at a certain place. And, we found that, law enforcement acts very swiftly in these cases. So the one big thing that, if there's anything that I could ask, not only seniors who are listening to this, but anybody who's been scammed or attempted scam, is to report, because one of the notes that Jill has here on her notes is that how often do we estimate that senior scams go unreported because the senior may be too embarrassed? It's a great question. It's one that we struggle with. We figure that between any reporting agency, whether it's the Better Business Bureau, whether it's the FTC or FBI, whatever it might be, we probably get to be maybe between 5 and 10% of all scam reports or reported. Obviously, if you've actually lost money, the reports of police are probably a little higher. But to reporting agencies like us, especially when it's a scam attempt, they're not very high. And there's a lot of, especially those folks, like if I go back to that romance scam victim I talked about earlier, there's a lot of shame in that. There's a lot of embarrassment. So, and I talk to people daily at Better Business Bureau who lose money in these things, or if they've even lost money to a bad business. I have to tell them, I was like, look, you're not alone. These people are good at what they do, and they're good at taking money from people that they don't deserve to take money from. And I try to put them at ease. So if you have been victimized, know that you're not alone. There are people out here like BBB and other entities that are out here to help you. And if you could tell us what's happening to you, we can only help you if you tell us what's happening.
And I think, though, that also people will often not know. I mean, there's the category of people who are victimized that are ashamed and they don't want to disclose it. Maybe they think also it will reflect to their family members that they're not competent.
Right.
So they will conceal that. But the other category, which I suspect could be easily as large, if not larger, are the people who don't detect it.
Yeah.
So, in other words, people who have things taken and they never know it. And maybe it's not even discovered after they pass away. Mm-hmm. So there's that risk, and it just punctuates the point that you were making a while ago, is that yes, you can be defrauded, but if you're older and you're not quite as sharp, it's possible even that you can be defrauded and not know it until sometime later, or maybe your family discovers it later. And those are all reasons that you need to do some sort of background check. I think another thing is they can, even though these are low-paid workers, I have to tell you that the people who are willing to work as the sort of unskilled workers that you have in the home, and typically they are unskilled. Generally, we're not talking about nurses here.
No, they're not. They're home health care workers.
So generally they work for around, depending on your area, as little as $20 an hour to as high as $30 an hour. But given what McDonald's pays right now, you're not getting a person that is going to be competitive for lots of jobs. So under those circumstances, I think it behooves the companies that are employing them to have them bonded in some sense. And then the bonding company is the one that will do the research for you, because they're the ones who are at risk.
Right.
And I don't know how common that is for companies who provide those home services, but I think that it's a fair question to ask, is do they bond their people? In addition to the vetting process that you pointed out, Don, I mean, at a minimum, they should be able to provide proof of an elaborate search. Should be a criminal check, should be a credit check, maybe any other filings of adult abuse or whatnot that would be civil. Lawsuits. These are all things, for the reasons that you point out, Don, that you could go online, you could get that information in 10 minutes on anybody, probably.
Without a doubt.
Especially if they gave you their Social Security number. And these employers all have that.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, you're not going to get somebody's social security number, but that employer certainly will. And obviously, the Better Business Bureau would be a great place to start at bbb.org. You can look at what other people are saying about these facilities or that in-home healthcare place. And then the number one thing, like if my father were going into that situation, I would exactly want to know, okay, how do you vet your people? How does a person who's going to come take care of my father, or the people who are going to take care of my father at your facility, how do you vet those people? If they don't do a background check, for me, that'd be a huge red flag.
Right.
Oh, yeah. It would be.
Yeah.
It should definitely result in your excluding anybody that doesn't do a thorough background check in the way we just described. I mean, putting aside the bonding, I think the bonding is great. But if they don't get this information that Dawn is telling you that they can have legally,
right,
if they'll just spend a few bucks to get it, if they're not doing that, I would absolutely rule out.
I would not even give them a second thought. Yep. And you yourself can even Google that facility and see if there's any, news articles that come up that, oh, yes, this facility was accused of abuse or is being sued for neglecting their residents or something. You can do that too.
Yeah, that's a very good point, is to leverage the thing that you were describing where you can go online and get information. That is huge. That's huge.
Depending on how deep you want to get into the weeds, whether you're in Illinois or Missouri or wherever you're watching us from, if you happen to be watching us from Florida, let's say, each one of those facilities has a state agencies that they have to report to. So all of these homes, especially if it's a long-term care facility, they're governed by the state. They have to report to someone. So there are certainly areas that you can find there. If you, like I said, if you want to get deep into the weeds and take that extra little layer of investigation, you can find that information out as well.
You can. And in Missouri, like there's the Department or Division of Senior Services. And
right.
And they track not only these facilities, but any complaints that relate to elder abuse. There are hotline numbers that can be called, of course. And it's a good thing to check and see if there have been it. Now, they won't report simply a report, meaning where it's just a complaint if it turned out to be not meritorious, because that would be unfair to the facility. But anytime that there is merit to a claim or any action taken, that would be reported.
That would be.
And now we have pretty stout laws in Missouri, and I suspect in Illinois as well, relating to adult abuse or senior abuse specifically. And senior abuse now extends to what's called financial exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
And financial exploitation is when you engage in activity in which somebody who is above, I don't remember the age in the statute, but I think it's above.
It's actually pretty low. It's 60 in a lot of states. If you take money from someone 60 or older, now you might not think of somebody who's 60 as a senior, but they are. And those, the older the person you rip off, the more penal the punishment are. The harsher the punishments are.
Yeah, very good.
Right.
And so people need to be aware of this. That to the extent that you think you yourself, or if we're talking to a son or daughter whose parent is vulnerable, then you may have a criminal cause of action where you can file a complaint and let the investigative services that your taxpayers are paying for look into this.
Absolutely.
And it's the Department of Social Services is the overarching department, but below that they have several divisions, and I think it's Division of Senior Services that monitors.
Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. Yeah.
Okay, so do your homework, and if you've been the victim. Or a loved one has been the victim and they're older, you can turn to these agencies for help. And as you point out, Don, there are stiff penalties now.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's a criminal matter.
It is a criminal matter, yeah.
Yep, in a lot of these cases. So if you're looking for information at bbb.org, we've got a long list of tips about how to protect older adults. If you just did a Google BBB tips protecting older adults, it'll pop right up. And there's all kinds of information on there.
Justin, can you tag that? We'll put it on. Okay, yeah. So remember, go to our website, and this is a general note to make. Whenever we talk about things like this, we're pretty good about putting a link on our site, so you can go strictly to this show and you can find the link. And our goal is to get you these resources as quickly and simply and free as possible.
Right.
So, all this information, a lot to think about in 2023, Don.
There is. I mean, if you have a to-do list, New Year's
resolution.
I was going to say revolution.
A New Year's revolution.
Well, a revolution would be better in some cases.
You're going to do these resolutions in the new year. If my brain will work right. One of these things, if you have an older loved one, make sure you say, hey, I'm going to check in on him or her a little bit more this year to make sure that they stay safe, because that's what we want to do. Especially for the older folks who, they've got a lifetime of wealth they've accumulated. You'd hate to see them lose that to anyone unjustly.
Yeah. And you know what, Don, I really am so glad you brought that up about the victims being too embarrassed to come forward. But really, they shouldn't be, and they shouldn't feel alone, because how many thousands of other people have been in that situation?
Yes.
So 2 quick things I'd like for us to just call to attention here, and any additional comments that you might have, Don.
Sure.
One is, I know that it's possible to have a computer, to have your settings in your computer, to use a search engine that is strong in this respect, so that you minimize your risk that people will be able to follow you, that people will be able to get into your computer, that they will know where you go. I mean, all those privacy issues and security issues, and that can be done by simply having somebody who's very computer literate to sit down and make those changes. And much of it just is in the settings of their phone and their computer. And there are search engines such as, I think one's called
DuckDuckGo.
Yeah,
Yep.
DuckDuckGo. There are a few that really, they hold themselves out. They focus on security. And with that, you may not get as much positive suggestions when you do searches and stuff. There may be, you give up a little something for the additional security. But my whole point is, if we're talking about things to do the beginning of this year, I know, Don, you agree with this, is, people should find somebody who's literate in this way, and have them take 15 minutes and go ahead and make those adjustments on your computer and your phone, to where I suspect that it would probably do 80% to help you, which in addition, you're left with the responsibility, though, not to choose to let people in that you don't know, but to know that you're protected in a much bigger way than you were before. And it's so easy to do. It doesn't cost you anything. Any comments, Don, on that?
No, yeah. So you could find somebody trusted in your life who's I think everybody has some type of tech whiz in their life that they can go to. Or even if you want to pay for this, and even if you just pay a little bit to have, go to a trusted source, look up at bbb.org. We have many accredited businesses that will do this kind of IT work for you. If you don't have an IT person, that will look over your computer, see what apps you have on your phone, make sure that you're safe, because that's that even if you have to spend a little bit of money on that can save you a lot down the line.
And the last point I wanted to make here is I wanted to have you comment on programs such as LifeLock is one, and there are a few that are similar. I've heard good things about it, that it's not bulletproof, but it's a way that people can, apparently they spend some money,
right,
and they get a lot of protection, not complete, but a lot of protection regarding somebody stealing your identity or getting into your bank accounts and stuff. At least it will let you know. I guess it doesn't so much prevent it as it does I'm told it will immediately notify you. Do you have any comments on services such as that?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's up to the individual user. If they're comfortable doing that. There's pay services you can do for that. There's any number of ones that you can go to for that. I would just suggest that you look into, as you would with anything else, you look into that business. Go to bbb.org and see what other consumers are saying about that business to see if it's right for you. And again, price point is huge for a lot of people. I have it through my the company that does my taxes offers that, so I go through them as part of that, and they kind of monitor my ID that way. So again, it's whatever you're comfortable with, but that is a good idea. If you're not going to this is all stuff you can do yourself, by the way. You can go get your own credit report at what I think it's annualcreditreport.com. You can monitor that as many times as you want right now during the pandemic, and we're still in the pandemic, according to that. And you can go once a week to all 3 credit bureaus and get your own credit rating to see what you're doing there. You can freeze your credit for free. You can freeze and unfreeze it like that. These are things you can do for free that kind of help keep you safe while everybody else is trying to get you.
Yeah, just a quick funny story. I don't know how many of our viewers remember this, but do y'all remember when the president of LifeLock, he had boasted, you know what I'm about to say, he had boasted that his system could not be penetrated, that you're absolutely safe. And so he did a series of ads for about 6 months in which he gave his social security number. And he said in the ad, that this number, and he gave this number, he said, I'm giving you my real social security number. He said, that's how confident I am. And of course, you know what happened. I mean, it became a challenge across the planet. Who's going to be the first one to breach this system? Imagine all the really, really smart people.
Mm-hmm. I know.
And it took them about a week. And somebody got into it, but it may have been longer than that. But it didn't damage their credibility to me because, number one, it told me how confident he was, which meant something, even though he was more confident than he should have been.
More confident.
But he challenged the planet.
He did.
I mean, when you do an ad like that, you're really challenging these. But ultimately, I think it may not have hurt the business because people realize that it is very difficult, and no, you do not want to hand out your Social Security number.
Yep.
But my impression is that the $1 million insurance that they provide I had a couple of relatives that have used it. It's been a while back, several years ago. But I'm just mentioning this because we're on the topic. It's first of the year. And, of course, we have no relationship with anybody we mention on here. But I think it's worth maybe checking to them or a competitor. Well, we'll have to have you report back, Don, next year. And you can come back and talk about what new developed this year so that we can better protect people in 24.
You bet. I'd love to do that. I appreciate you guys having me on. If you're listening, always know that bbb.org is available for you 24/7, 365. You can go on there and look up information. Don't get caught.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Happy New Year, Don.
Yes.
Happy New Year, you guys, and everyone out there watching and listening. Thank you so much for having me.
Happy New Year. This has been another episode of Life's Third Act. Till next time, take care.
You've been listening to Life's Third Act, a podcast for thriving in retirement. Sponsored by Tucker Allen, your estate and elder law advisors. Each week, we discuss topics and answer questions to help you better plan for your future. For more information, visit tuckerallen.com. Subscribe and listen again next week for another edition of Life's Third Act. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.